Welcome back. We're now coming into step 3 of the 10 steps of raising your financial IQ. And we're still in the big picture, so understand why the rich are getting richer and everybody else is working harder and paying more in taxes. A quick review, there's 3 types of education: academic, professional, and financial. This is my poor dad's focus. This is my rich dad's focus, and Donald Trump's focus here is financial education. And we don't teach this in schools, so that's where the cash flow clubs are formed, so people have access to this information for free or at low price as possible to make it available to anybody who wants to learn. And I also don't recommend forcing this down anybody's throat. You know, if somebody doesn't want to learn, don't force it, because that's what they do in the school system, and that's why I hated school, because I was being forced to learn something I didn't want to learn, but also nobody could tell me why I was learning it. You know, why do I need to learn calculus? I have never used calculus yet. But I almost flunked out several times because of that silly subject. But if you're going to be an engineer, maybe so, but not if you're going to be an investor. You don't really need it. Okay? And the third point here is there's 3 types of income: earned, portfolio, and passive. And when you say to somebody, go to school and get a job, be a good, hardworking person, you're working for earned income. And what the investors and business guys are doing is portfolio and passive. And because your #1 expense is what? Taxes. And so it's not financially intelligent to work hard and give half your money away. I mean, to some people that makes sense. To me, that doesn't make sense. So in lesson number 3, I'm going to go back a little bit, but it's a very important thing. It's the importance of vocabulary. I think we all know the importance of numbers with words. And as my poor dad had a great vocabulary. He knew what gerunds, prepositions, long division, short division, integers, and whatever else we studied. But we don't learn the vocabulary of the rich. So we learn the vocabulary of school teachers, blah, 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 but you don't get rich. You need to understand the words of the rich. So one of the best investments you can make is just get a dictionary, and anytime somebody uses a word with you, especially a broker or somebody like that trying to sell you something, you don't understand the word like PE ratios or cap rates, look it up. Because words are the fuel to your brain, and words are free. So when somebody says, you know, it takes money to make money, that's not my experience. It takes vocabulary. Understand the definition of the word. That makes sense, you guys here? Yes. It's very, very important. So if you're going to learn to be an auto mechanic, you need to learn the vocabulary of an auto mechanic. You know, how many people know what a distributor cap is? How many people do not know what a distributor cap is? How many people, if you fix a distributor cap, the car would die? That's me. But at least you know the word on the whole thing there. If you're going to be a techie, you need to know the vocabulary of techies, and I'm not a techie. But I do know the vocabulary of money, especially entrepreneurship and real estate. I love those subjects because I can make the most money and pay the least taxes legally. I can hire other people to work for me. That means I don't have to work, I have free time. That's what I love about it. So going into the subject vocabulary, I'll just show you the power of the effect of not using the wrong definition for a word. For those of you who had rich dad, poor dad, my poor dad always said, my house is an asset. And my rich dad would go, your old man may be a PhD in education, but he's a moron financially. He says, your father could read a financial statement, i.e. one of these things, you would see that your house is not an asset, your house is a liability. And the reason why that's so important today is there's millions and millions of people who are buying big houses, nice cars, and all this, and calling them what? Assets. And that's the problem. So in a very simple diagram here, when you look at it like this is an income statement and balance sheet. I already said this before, but I think it's worth working about, talking about. Again, assets, what's the definition? Put money in your pocket. So this is the cash flow pattern of an asset. So whether you work or not, it's putting money in your pocket. And the definition of a liability is? Takes money from your pocket. Man, it's not that tough. If you look it up in the dictionary, I think you'll go blind. That's one of the problems, is you've got to figure it out. The reason this cash flow game is worth playing over and over again, pretty soon you start to see it in your mind as you fill in the numbers according to these words here. That's why some people say, I played the game once or twice. That's not it. You play it 10 times, you learn something more. 20 times, you learn something more. It's another depth onto the word. How many people have played the game more than 20 times in this room? How many people learn something every single time? Every single time, yes. So the point here is this: inside the cash flow game, you don't have to be the teacher. The lessons were embedded into the game, and the more you play it, the more it's revealed to you, like this. So this is one of the biggest problems in America and many countries like Japan and Europe and all this. We have people who are calling liabilities what? Assets. Do you know how dangerous that is? You know, they say, well, how come the country is so deeply in debt? Well, because they're calling liabilities what? Assets. And that's the problem. If you call something by the wrong name, you know, you go home and your wife's name is Susie, say, hi, Mary. I mean, whoa, whoa, whoa. So that's why vocabulary is so important. Or what I learned in Sunday school, and the word becomes flesh. In other words, if you're a moron, you become a bigger moron. So that's why be very careful on vocabulary over here. So my poor dad always called his house an asset when it was really a liability. This is one more tip I'll just give on to this, is that a difference too is this: many people are poor because they want to look rich. So they buy the big house, the nice car, and all this. And as I said, I don't believe in living below my means. But I also don't like being deeply in debt. It doesn't make sense to me to get up and go to work just to make a house payment, car payment, credit card payment, school payments. How many people don't like that? You know, that's horrible. That's absolutely the most horrible thing. That's why this is here, where 90% of the population is there stuck in the rat race. Get up, go to work, get up, go to work. And they get deeper and deeper in debt, have to work harder and harder and harder, running around here. And then one day the guy at 48 goes, cardiac, and dies, you know. I know, it's funny, you know. The story I always tell, the guy's dead, the guy in a nice house and a life insurance policy. The wife collects a $4 million life insurance policy. The guy's dead. And the wife, the grieving widow, comes home from the funeral and says, he worked so hard, you know, we're buying all of these assets for the family, but thank God we have life insurance. You know, so he's dead, and she's sitting there crying away, and then she gets a $4 million check. She just, the tears sort of dry up, you know. And she looks out by the pool, and sitting by the pool is Bruno from Lithuania. He's got buff because he doesn't work. He just pumps all the day. You know, he's in the sun all day. He's looking good. And he sees the young widow crying, and he comes over her and taps her on the shoulder, and they get married, live happily ever after on the $4 million death penalty. So that's the problem of getting stuck in the what? Rat race. But young guys, if you want to get rich, find guys who are in the rat race and hang out with their wives. Okay? Only kidding. But that's the problem with defining a liability and asset. Guys got that? Yeah. If you're going to do that, buy lots of life insurance, but it's a big expense. All right? It's whatever you want to do. Now, another word that many people make the mistake on is the difference between rich versus wealthy. Forbes defines rich as $1 million a year without working. So I qualify as that. But before I qualified for that, I wanted to be wealthy. And wealthy simply said, the definition of wealthy, according to one of my teachers, was the numbers of days forward you could survive without working. So in other words, if you stopped working today, and let's say you had $10,000 in the bank, and your burn rate per month, your total expenses to support your lifestyle was $1,000 a month, your wealth is 10 months. So in other words, wealth is measured in time, and rich is measured in money. It's a very slight difference in the distinction there. So USA Today found that the greatest fear in America today is not Al-Qaeda or terrorism. The greatest fear in America today, especially amongst the baby boomers, is running out of money during retirement. And the reason for that is they're trying to save their way to retirement. They're saving their money in mutual funds, 401ks, and all this. So they think they're rich, but they're not wealthy. Does that make sense, you guys here? So a very big distinction when you're playing this cash flow game, what you want here are assets that keep putting money in your pocket, and this cash flow is greater than your expenses. The moment you have cash flow greater than expenses, you are technically wealthy. You may not be rich, but you're wealthy. So I'd rather sometimes be, for a long time I was wealthy, but I was not rich. So wealthy was just a step along the way to getting rich. So today, my wife and I have several $1,000,000 cash flow annually, whether we work or not, and our expenses remain low. Okay. And a big reason for that is because our liabilities are paid for by our assets. So my wife and I just got matching Lamborghinis. You know, they're $250,000 each. But we have the assets that pay for those cars every single month. So I don't have to work any harder for that. So this distinction here is, to me, what's financially smart is to acquire assets before you acquire liabilities. And what the middle class is doing is they're acquiring liabilities and getting deeper in debt. And they have no real assets. They have mutual funds and stuff like that, but they're not getting ahead. So those are some of the challenges and problems with not understanding the correct vocabulary here. The last two words in vocabulary I want to make a distinction on: capital gains versus what? Cash flow. When somebody comes to me and says, oh, my stock went up in value, or my house went up in value, what are they talking about? Capital gains. And that's why they say their net worth has gone up. Net worth is very simply your assets minus your liabilities. And the problem with net worth is worth less, because I can count this as part of my assets. I can count my car as my assets, count my house as my asset, and all this. So I have an erroneous idea of what my net worth is. As a professional investor, all I count is cash flow. I don't care about capital gains. People who buy houses, you know, say for $100,000 and sell them for $150,000, they're investing for what? Capital gains, not cash flow. So one of the most important things this game teaches you is how to continually trade between capital gains to get cash flow. And that's the way ultimately you want cash flow here. It is one of the biggest distinctions of all. Another thing too is this: taxes. Capital gains are taxed higher than cash flow. The other thing too here is if you invest for capital gains, R-U-N E-S, B, or I? S. These here, capital gains guys, they want prices to go up. They trade stocks, they trade options. They're just plain capital gains. Cash flow guys are investors. Those are very big distinctions. And the more, if you decide to continue to study, you will find out what a tremendous difference this makes in the difference in your mindset, whether or not you're trading for capital gains, which I do sometimes, but generally I'm trading for cash flow. I don't like flipping because, and I do flip occasionally, but that means I have to go look for another investment. Being lazy, I just want this money to come in for the rest of my life. And if I had kids, I just pass it on to my kids and they pass on for this. The trouble with capital gains, you're always in and out of the market. That's called trading. It's not really called investing. It's also called speculation. It's not really called investing. So in my mind, a true investor is investing for cash flow, and the average person is investing for capital gains. It's one of the bigger distinctions, and the more you go on, if you decide to go on with your study, you will find out the richest people have this, not this here. And inside this game, when you're playing with big deal, small deal, market cards, and doodads, you'll find that you'll have opportunities for capital gains, and you'll have opportunities for cash flow. But your financial IQ goes up knowing the difference and knowing how to get more and more cash flow. That's why the board game is called what? Cash flow, because you're looking for money going from here to here, from here to here. And that's what makes you rich. Thank you. Take a moment, discuss what you just learned today. I don't expect everybody to understand it fully, but you play, and then after you discuss it, play the game again. Look at wealth. Wealth is based upon cash flow, not necessarily capital gains. A lot of people are rich because they have capital gains, but they have no cash flow. And so please take time to discuss that. And as you play this game over the next few times, I think you will find your financial IQ going up. You'll make distinctions that the average person does not make. Which is why I promised you, if you stick it out for the 10 times, you'll be smarter than 90% of the people on planet Earth, which is not saying much, but you'll still be smarter. Thank you very much.